Go ahead. Just try to provoke me.
Oh, I just got up, man.
Oh, come on. Bust your daddy's chops.
Fine.
Magnet Studios presents the Procreative Podcast with Jay Mars.
Welcome to the Procreative Podcast. This is Jay Mars. Okay, here we go. Here's my first podcast. I just want to go ahead and introduce the show to you guys and let you know what to expect from here on out. This is a show for artist parents of all crafts, children of all ages. Whatever you're bringing to the table, I want to try and draw a community around it where there currently isn't one. I found that in my own life, choosing to live 1,000 miles away from my own family and my traditional support group, while it's been a tremendous advantage in terms of my career, it's left me felt like I was drowning most of the time. Like I just didn't have the resources and the support to get where I needed to go, or at least with a healthy enough mindset to even enjoy the successes that I was experiencing. I also want to be totally upfront that I'm learning how to do this while I record the show. So your patience with both the quality and the content are really appreciated, and you can expect both of those to grow significantly in the coming months as we continue with the show. My first guest is Erin Roberts. She's an arts administrator with the Music District in Fort Collins, Colorado, and she's also the frontwoman of the band Porlolo. So, without further delay, I bring you Erin Roberts. I'm here with Erin Roberts. Erin, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, you are the frontwoman of the band Porlolo, and you work here at the Music District. How would you describe the work that you do?
Well, I think at a very basic level, I'd say my work here at the Music District, I'm an arts administrator. I manage a team called Artist Development, and we manage artist residencies, education programs. So essentially, we try to find local musicians, meet them where they're at career-wise or skill-wise, and take them to the next point. Where that next point is really depends on the person and what they're doing with their career or non-career.
And you also, what do you play in Porlolo?
I play the guitar and sing. Sometimes I play the trumpet also. I've been known to play the Casio a little bit as well. Cool. That's probably about it.
Do you play in any other projects or any other Denver bands that people would know you by?
Sometimes I play one song in the band Still Tide.
Very cool.
Yes.
Also my former band.
Oh, you were in
that.
Still Tide. Yeah, I play on one song of theirs, and it's been great because I hate asking other bands for free tickets to their shows. You know, like I hate being that person that's like, hey, you got any guest list spots?
Yeah.
So,
but much cooler to ask, can I be in the band?
Well, I don't ask. I just wait, and I hope they're going to play that song. And then for things like Nathaniel Rateliff's holiday party last year, it's like, oh, hey, Erin, you want to play that song on trumpet? Oh, really? Are you? That would be great. So it's pretty nice, and I love their music.
Very cool. And so this is a podcast about parent artists and how that affects your creativity, all that good stuff. So when did you become a parent? Not only a year, but how old were you? Where were you at in life?
Oh my God. Well, I'm an older parent, so I don't know how old I was when I had my first kid. I could probably do the math. I think I was 36 when I had my first kid, and I had been playing in Porlolo for, probably already 12 years. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Let me actually do the math on this because it won't be too hard. I started Porlolo 2000. Yeah, I'd been playing in Porlolo for 12 years. By the time I had my first kid, had my second kid when I was 38. And I would say like I was pretty well established, very well established as Porlolo by that time. I tried out a lot of different iterations of the band. I had different kinds of lineups, like a solo lineup, a duo lineup, a full band thing. I was used to playing with a lot of different iterations of people. And then career-wise, I was pretty far into my professional career too, in arts management, arts administration. So I'd say, equally about 12 years into my professional career too.
And before the music district, you were doing that in what capacity?
I started in community and public radio. Went to grad school from there, got a higher degree in arts administration, and then bounced around between museum jobs. I managed a recording studio and live sound production company, worked at a music management company, and did some more radio. So a lot of stuff with mostly music centered. I think contemporary arts was a little bit of a departure from what I had been doing and my passion for music, but I did find ways to incorporate music and contemporary bands into the work I was doing at the museum as well.
Cool. I definitely am coming at the parent timeline a little bit differently. I became a parent when I was 27. So in a sense, I'm still finding my place in the world at the same time of trying to figure out how the hell to do this. So these conversations are really valuable for me to figure that out, and hopefully other people that would be listening.
I think about that though when you say like finding your place in the world as a parent. I'm not sure it matters, and this is why I'm curious to talk to you today. I'm hoping to get some good advice from you as well. I'm not sure if anyone's ever ready to find I think you have to redefine your place so drastically in the world, no matter what age you are when you have kids. It's pretty wild.
Right. Yeah, in a way, it for me it definitely involved kind of not taming my expectations for what I wanted artistically, but just looking at the reality of what I could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
Because I would say on the one hand, nothing has ever pushed me forward more in terms of like, I got to get my shit together, and I only have a finite amount of years, and you watch that kind of marked through the life of another person. And on the other hand, although it's been like very driving for me, I would definitely say that it's kind of changed what I view that I'm able to do. Like there's just some realistic kind of things that you can't do. Like right now, touring isn't a huge option until, the kind of calculus changes about that, where we're moving forward with like a bigger band, opening for them. And also, I really don't know that I would enjoy sleeping on random floors for a month straight anymore at this point. So yeah, I'm kind of curious actually where I'm going with this is like when you found out, oh my God, I'm bringing a life into this world, like how did that change like how you saw yourself in the art world?
I was pretty idealistic when I was pregnant the first time, like, oh, cool. I had that notion that everybody does, like, I'll just keep on doing exactly what I'm doing, and make this kid, or like, this kid won't change me. I'm just gonna keep on living the exact same way. So much so that I remember I played a show when I was 9 months pregnant. It was on my birthday at Larimer Lounge with Destroyer. I was so incredibly pregnant that I had to put the guitar like out to the side. I was like pointing the neck at people as I was playing. I couldn't breathe at all.
I can envision it.
It was huge. And Dan Behar from Destroyer was talking about touring with his wife when she was pregnant. And then he said something to the effect of, yeah, but after like 6 months or so, she just looked too ridiculous. And then he looked at me and paused and was like, oh, well, I mean, but not with you look, I was like, it's fine. This is really ridiculous. I shouldn't. So, until I actually had the kid, and it actually took a while after that too, because I had a newborn. then I already knew in my head I was going to take some time off of music to deal with like the transition into motherhood. But then I think the reality hit me more, 6 months in or so, where it was like, oh my God, I am not sleeping. There's this maniac yelling at me, dictating every move that I make. Like, how the hell am I supposed, like, where do I exist in all of this? Yeah, but then I think, like you were saying, it also forced me to be incredibly strategic. Like, the drive doesn't go away. The drive to be your own human, it's just in there. I think for me, for people to different degrees, but for me, the drive to have this semblance of self is huge. And so I think the place that I found my semblance of self is music and songwriting. And so that's the thing I've fought for most within my own life and within my own sense of independence from family is songwriting and songs, and everybody does a different thing. That's my thing. So it actually has been extremely motivating, unbelievably frustrating, because I have the drive for self doesn't mean I have the time or the energy.
Right.
So there's a constant fight.
There's an angst.
Yes.
For sure.
Like, I need to be doing this. I can't do it.
Yeah.
It hurts
It's really tough to feel like you're doing both very well, at least for me personally. I always feel like one or the other gives a little bit, because, and I'm on a intense creative streak, demoing out a bunch of stuff. I just always like to work late. It's just how my brain has always worked. That's tempered a little bit with since Jet came into the world, but when I stay up to 2 a.m. working on stuff, it is just a law of the universe that I have to be awake at 7 a.m. now, and I know what that day is going to feel like now. And there's always a push and pull of, you're like, oh man, this sounds so cool. I can't wait to keep working on this. But then you're not as present, the next day or the next morning, and you're more easily agitated. And
yeah. And you're a young parent. Imagine what it's like to be an elder parent like myself. I mean, it's like the hangovers are worse, but also just sleep deprivation. It's hard. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not creative at all when I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm only boring and sleepy.
Yeah.
And grumpy.
Definitely the grumpy factor. Yeah, my first thought was, I remember the moment that I found out that we were pregnant. I was excited. It was a little earlier than I expected, but my first couple of thoughts were, this is awesome. This is scary. The first negative thought I had was my creative autonomy and like the vision of myself as a musician or producer or what have you is changed, and I don't know if I can do it, and there's probably going to be a lot of pressure on me from my family to, I'm making quotes, get serious.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
provide.
Like provide. Mm-hmm. This is something that actually, that's one of the topics I do want to cover with you, is that family and social kind of stigma about, I don't know if it's selfish or, just the way that people perceive you as maybe being a little bit more self-interested in doing your creative work rather than the security of the desk job.
Well, yeah, and I've thought about that a lot, and it's interesting because I have the desk job and the creative job and the family job. So, but I do feel like there is pressure, and I'm not sure, maybe I'm putting that on myself. But we put a lot of pressure on my extended family. They help out a lot with, dropping kids off, watching kids on the weekends. So I do feel like sometimes there is this unspoken judgment of like, oh, really? You have another show, or you're going to be gone again, or you're going to be gone for how long on? And it's not long. Usually I only tour for maybe a week at a time now. But it's not from my husband. He's supportive, but I think from my extended family, who also X to support. They're like, oh man, okay, mom,
Right.
like maybe you should stick around a little more.
Yeah. There's kind of that latent judgment there of what people think you should be doing with your time or how present you should be, and
Or when it's time to do something else. I think it's easier for people who don't have a strong passion for one thing to understand kind of the drive to keep doing the thing. Like it's not. I mean, it's not even like a choice. It's just this internal drive. I can't ignore it.
right. It's I remember. I can't remember his name, but it was one of the music talks that I went to with Ben DeSoto and Jake Miller at Syntax. And the speaker was like, if you can do anything else, if you can, try to do that, because this is hard, and only if you absolutely can't live without it is when you should attempt to do it.
Oh,
and
wow.
I felt that way a lot. It's like, in a way, like, I can't even wish this away. Like, my life would probably be much easier, and I'm probably burning the candle at both ends a lot just to be able to do it, as far as, like, my mental health. So, tried other things, and I just keep coming back to this.
Yeah, me too. One of the things that's stuck in my head lately is, I wasn't at a terrible point in my music career when I had kids, but I was never making much money off of it. So I want to talk to people that are actually making a living purely off of music performance, licensing, whatever it is, and figure out what their balance is,
Right.
What does parenting mean for them? Because part of the hustle of having kind of a moderately or maybe unsuccessful band, depending on who you ask, is that there's no money coming in from it. So the justification of spending all this time doing something that sometimes costs me a lot of money to do, that's what really eats at me at night sometimes, is like, should I really be doing this?
Right.
Like, should I be buying my kid new shoes instead of paying for this record?
Right.
Am I doing the right thing?
There's already, I remember my own parents telling me about that sense of parental guilt that's just always latent, and I feel like as an artist parent, it's probably just on steroids, because you have a lot more self-interested expenses.
Yeah. Right. It's like you go to your job because it's guaranteed money, but you go to band practice, like, I don't know, it's just but I don't know. I think it's unbelievably valuable to be an individual, not just a parent. Like you and I, we're individuals too. We
Right.
have needs. We have a brain that creates and takes things in and spits things out. And I would be a miserable, horrible person if I didn't exercise that part of my being. That's how I have to justify it anyway.
Right. Yeah, and this is something that I was hoping we were going to cover, and this is kind of moving into the mental health aspect. I definitely feel like when it's working, when all things are firing well, it is a positive for my mental health. Like, this is like exercise. It's something that makes me a better parent, makes me happier. Sometimes when it's not going right, I feel like it's actually detracting from my ability to be present or like engage with my daughter. And I'm curious what you think.
I absolutely agree with that. And I would say, I'm almost 5 years into having my first kid, doing Porlolo at the same time. And I think that my career has gotten better and better and better opportunities. I'm making better music because I've made extremely strategic choices based on not wanting to feel the way that you're describing. It's purely mental health decisions, but ultimately they're like more professional. They're decisions to be more professional and take my music more seriously and place more value on it so that I can justify. So I've been playing with people that take my music more seriously, and this is like in a band setting, because I have had a iterative band and I play with a lot of different people, and I like that. I like having varied lineups, but I've been playing with people that are really, they take me a lot, they take me seriously. It feels good. They practice, they put a lot more into the live experience. We sound better, we make more money. I say no to a lot of shitty opportunities that I would have said yes to before, and those crappy opportunities are usually the ones that make me feel like, oh my God, what is life about?
Because time
this is hell.
My first thought is that time is always a huge issue. So
Yes.
being able to do those things is limited, but that's also a good thing. And these are actually some of the things that make me glad that I'm a parent, because it makes me look more objectively at, okay, you don't actually have to take every opportunity just to be able to say, like, oh, I played at this, I played like 5 shows this week. Like,
Why?
Why? What is that going to get me? So it actually feels good to be able to say no, and
Yeah.
that is a new thing.
It's hard. You go from a place of scarcity, or like you never know when your next show, to a place of being able to be like, it's not all about playing live. I need to make a good record. I need to try to get a placement in something. I need to write new music. For me, I think the mental health devastating pit avoidance has really made me look at the band more holistically about what are all the things that go into this project. And if I don't have time to play shows right now, should I be writing songs, or should I be recording some new music? It's not as reactive. It's more proactive.
Right. It's much more intentional for me. Like, there's a reason why I'm doing everything that I'm doing. And it's not, I probably more than anything love playing live, but it's also economically the least viable thing to do the most, which is, made me look at other things like licensing and producing bands. And these are actually good things, because you can't, unless you're David Bowie having like a 5-decade career making innovative music, most people aren't going to be that. So what else do you have to bring to the table to sustain yourself and not burn out on this one thing?
It's really fascinating to think about the multifaceted careers of musicians and all of the things that people do to fund their day-to-day life.
Yeah, and not only just the music, but even to be a band, you have to be like a graphic designer, booking agent, write your bio.
Oh, yeah.
All these different things to make this little dream go.
Merch designers, merch slingers.
Yeah. When it comes to Porlolo, how much of that stuff are you able to take on, and has that changed with having a kid? Do you outsource more work?
I don't really outsource anything. I think I do. I'm probably pretty frustrating as far as like what venues expect of me for promotion. I don't give as much as I'd like to, especially in like the social media and that sort of thing, because that's when I feel really shitty about. I don't feel bad about like writing the songs or playing the shows, but when I'm like, oh, sorry, I'll be right there, honey. Dinner's almost ready, but I have to make a Facebook post.
Right.
Then I'm like, oh my God, this is extremely lame.
Right.
Not that that's not valuable, and I think people that do that work and can do it really well. Like it works for them. It's just like the last priority on the music chain for me.
Right.
And so it's really hard. So I think like the business aspects, that's where I feel like I'm really underperforming as a business owner, Porlolo business owner.
LLC Incorporated.
Yes. Trademark, copyright.
Yeah, it's easy to look at. I definitely have been more cognizant about how social media is affecting my own mental health. And it is not immediately obvious that it actually can be really negative, because our brains are wired to compare to different people and different groups. And I think that the thing that usually resonates with me, other than aesthetic on something like Instagram, is authenticity. And that's actually where the idea of this podcast came from, is because I was like, you know what? I like things to look cool and look a certain way, but at the same time, I don't want to hide who I really am.
Yeah.
I am in a psych rock band, kind of experimental music, but at the same time, not into partying. I'd rather talk about the nature of consciousness and AI and all these things, and I'm also a dad, and I feel like I just got to find my people, and I hope that these conversations are valuable to those people.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about that too, as far as finding other parent musician friends. Because one of the things that I think is really hard is, even though I love the musicians that I play with, and they've just been incredible people in my life. They've kept me alive over the last 4 years. They're not parents, and there's no crossover. Like, my kids they don't know my kids at all. It's two totally separate lives. And that bothers me. Like, I want my kids to be more involved in my indie rock life, but there's like no interest from that world really in incorporating kids. I mean, you could probably feel this too. Sometimes it works to have your kids around, but in general, it's not really a place for really young kids. I think when my kids get older, it'll be different. But for like I've basically had 2 newborns and infants over the last 2 years. There's just it's not interesting. It's not cool. It's interesting and cool for me in a fascinating, like, oh my God, who are these people? But they're mine. I'm the only one that's going to be interested in that. And I recognize that. So sometimes the feeling of having these 2 completely separate worlds that don't integrate at all, it's a bad feeling. It's a little bit isolating. I feel isolated in both. I feel isolated as a parent because all of my time is spent with non-parents. And then I feel isolated as a musician because I don't get to share. If I'm doing the music thing, my family's away from me.
Right. So fascinated by that, because everything you just said is exactly my experience too. And I don't really know if there is a way to change that, but other than just talking about it and getting it out there feels relieving in a way.
Yeah. I think so. I don't know if there's a way to change it. I really think it's just when the kids get older, and it's more natural for them. But that's going to be quite honestly, I doubt in 10 years I'm still going to be playing music.
Right.
Publicly. I might still be recording albums, but I really doubt when I'm 51 years old, I'm going to be playing at the High Dive. Sorry, right. Kurt. Sorry, everyone at the High Dive, but I don't think that fits my vision of life at 51.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember times when I would be playing I would be alone with Jed all day. It'd be like my day. And at the time I was working from home also with a tech company. And I would come out to the show with the Still Tide, and I would feel in a way like I have a place because these are my people. This is how I got to know everyone in Denver, is through the music scene. But also no one really knows or probably cares about like 3/4 of the things that happened to me today. And I feel self-conscious about talking about them. Like, do you want to know that I've been potty training a toddler?
Yeah.
But it's like taking up like almost all of my consciousness.
Do you want to know that I just got screamed at by 2 like toddlers for an hour and a half right before I came here? Like, right. It's so relevant to how you show up as a person to anything, but it's so out of their like they cannot understand
right
what that means. So like the struggle is real.
The struggle is so real. So you work with the Music District, and I'm kind of curious. This really seems like an important resource for Fort Collins and Denver. Is there any resource available or any community of other parent musicians that you found through working here?
Quite honestly, there are a lot of musicians that work here at the music district. Well, this is what I want to say about like finding. It's hard to find compatible like parents that you want to hang out with and their kids, because age is such a big thing. You know, like if your kid's a totally different age than some other kid, it doesn't really work that well. Most musicians that I've met here don't have kids, or their kids are like way different in age. So there's not a lot of community built or cohesion between being a musician and a parent. I just think everybody's circumstances are so different. Or there's a lot of parent musicians that I know that are single parents, so they have the kid part of the time, similar to you. Mm-hmm. So no, I wouldn't say. I feel similarly in Fort Collins, living in Fort Collins, as I did in Denver. That it's still two totally separate lives that I keep apart. And I don't work with a lot of parents. I don't play music with a lot of parents, so it seems it's a pretty big gulf still.
Are there things that maybe are not specifically for young, creative musician, what have you types, that actually could be resources that we're not aware of? Like I know the music district has, you have artist housing, correct?
Yeah.
Is that the type of thing that...
Well, we do have residencies here, and people have brought their kids. So we had Kid Astronaut come and do a week-long residency, and he brought his whole family. So his kid and the mom of his kid came and did their own thing for the week. So he didn't... I loved that because he didn't have to totally separate his life creatively, his family and creative life. And he really like spent a lot of time in the mornings walking around with the baby. It was a little baby, you know, an infant still. So we do, I run that artist residency program. I welcome people to bring their families with them because I am a person who would want to do a creative residency and not have to be away from my family. I want the time during the day to be the time and the space to create, but then I also want the time and space to fill my loving mother insides up. There are a lot of resources in Fort Collins for kind of older kids, middle school, even elementary, middle, and high schoolers. There's a ton of modern music programming here that kids can learn to play essentially rock music. It's unlike any other place I've been. So I think that's going to be exciting when my kids are older, if they're interested at all in music. We'll see. They hate my singing, so we'll see. But I don't blame them half of the time. So we'll see what happens. I remember I went to the park one time, and it was like a food truck rally, and this band was playing, and I thought they were like the worst thing I'd ever heard. And my one son, Hollis, who's never pays any attention to music, was like, "Oh, now this is a good band." And I was just like, "What? Really? You make me turn off my own music, but this on. This is your choice."
Wow.
You're not mine.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a vision of what they might be like, but yeah, maybe be a little doctor or
I don't
teacher.
know. Just want him to be cool. Not like cool, but I just want him to be nice.
Yeah.
And a cool dude.
Yeah.
Cool dudes. That's all I can ask for.
Jet has taken to singing.
Oh.
Which makes me quite happy. We'll see where it goes.
She seems like she's got some real performer inside of her.
Yeah. I got this vocal loop pedal that we've been building some pretty fun loops. She's really good at matching pitch, so I'll sing, one note, like a root note, and then I'll like sing the next note, and we'll like build a chord of her voice, and it's pretty fun.
That's so cool.
And this is something that, talking about the separation of things, this is actually when I set a time aside to where it doesn't have to be like I'm thinking that I'm creating like the next single off our next album, to where I'm like music can actually just be a bond between two people, and it can be even me and my 3-year-old daughter, and we can make a song that maybe no one hears, maybe like just my family hears. And it's better than something passive like watching TV even.
Yeah.
And these are things that have really changed my own perspective about what music is, especially when I started teaching also. You know, that it's not just about you on stage and people like looking up at you, and like, you know, that was like my teenage like perception of what music is.
Yeah, like, look at me.
Look what I can do. And it's actually this really sharing experience that you can have even a couple people really grow from.
Oh, yeah. There's a program that we run out of the music district called Detour, and it takes musicians and puts them in underserved communities. So sometimes that means really small towns. But this last detour went to elder centers, and for folks, a lot of folks with memory problems, dementia, Alzheimer's, and things like that. And the musicians went on a tour of elder care centers and actually played hymns to this woman as she died. You know, the family invited these musicians in.
Wow.
And they came out of the experience saying, like, you know, this is such a valuable experience for these patients, these elderly people with, you know, at the end of their lives, but it's just as valuable for us as musicians. And we want more opportunities like this, because after a while it does seem really self-serving. You can only be like, hey, look at me, look what I can do for so long before.
Right.
And for me, it's always been not even so much that, because it's always been really horrifying for me to be on stage, and it's more like, oh my God, I just made it through that. Like, I just lived to tell this story. It's more like, oh God, I just did that. Okay. And that feeling, and then I kind of lost that feeling, and then it turned into, look at these friendships I get to have on stage. Look at these people that I get to be with, adults, and they see me as just me and not a mom. That's where I like this separation. I love being able to be around people that are like, we just see you for you.
Right.
And we don't even care about anything else. Like, we like you, and we like playing music with you. But I can see how that at a certain point will be like, well, I can just hang out with these friends. Mm-hmm. I feel like there is some next thing waiting for how I interact with music, whether it's Porlolo or something else. And I'm trying to figure out what that is. And it would be so cool if my kids came around and were interested in music and I could do something there. I have nieces in town that are getting really into music. They're 13, and I've already loved, you know, talking about songs or their songwriting, suggesting a different bridge, or talking to them about a website. You know, and maybe that's the next step for me. I don't know what it is, but
just helping people. I
want it to feel valuable still. I'm sensing the need to change.
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely think about, because there are so many things that anybody could listen to. Like, there's more music than anyone could possibly listen to at this point. So it's to me not about quantity, really about more and more so about the enjoyment that I personally get out of it. Because that's good for my own mental health, and also I feel like that more than anything resonates with people is when there's like some realness and some truth behind it.
Yeah. And
that's not just in the music, but that's acknowledging your identity and kind of taking that, you know, I was telling you about that first thought about, oh my God, like I can't be a musician, I'm a parent now, and actually like spinning that and making it a positive. You know, I'm a parent musician.
It's awesome.
And it's cool, and you can't discount me or write me off. You're just a unique thing. And I actually look at I've seen your band many times, and I definitely see the chemistry that you guys bring to the table, and it's palpable, and I know you're a parent, and I only think that makes your band more badass because of that, because I personally know how hard it is to find the time to do that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. It was something you brought up earlier about the type of songs that you're writing changing. Tell me, I want to know about that.
Yeah, I've always kind of approached songwriting of this very kind of linear way, like me, myself, I'm going to sit in this like darkened corner, I'm going to plug in my microphone, and I'm just going to write the song, and then I'm going to write, first I'm going to start with the verse, the hook, and then I'll write the bridge. And it honestly got to the point where I felt like I had to be bored and lonely and depressed to be able to access the creative part of my brain. And you actually mentioned in the beginning of this conversation about, this kid's not going to change me. And that was actually the first year of having a baby. I was like, no, that's how I am creative. Like, I exercise, these demons in a way by getting them out through songwriting. And that was like the format. And it actually was just kind of a dead end. I felt like I wasn't being as good of a parent as I could, and I felt isolated from other artists and people in the community. And it wasn't until I started going to therapy, actually, and collaborating with my roommates, Kevin Netz and Reed Fox from Décollage, and we actually just started approaching creativity and production and writing songs from a really collaborative place, and a place that was open to sharing things and sharing happy things about myself, and just being more honest. Actually, that's probably the biggest thing. Writing more honestly, and maybe that means more narratively. I feel like I used to approach lyric writing in a very like codified way, where people would have to like interpret through like 3 layers to understand maybe what I'm even hinting at. But now it's like you just say what you're feeling. And I feel like I listen to your lyrics, and it seems that you kind of write in that kind of straightforward style.
Yeah, more so lately.
Yeah.
I think too. I think stuff was made way more codified before, or I tend to, if it gets too straightforward, I'm like, oh. Like
it feels scary to put
too
it
much
out there.
information. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how did that change for you pretty drastically?
I mean, process changed incredibly, because I used to just sit around, I'd just plug my guitar in and just mumble out shit until something came out that I felt like, oh, I feel like that statement I just made, or that line, that's how I feel. That's real. So I'm going to write a narrative around this catchy thing or this catchy hook. So it was really time intensive. Almost all of my songs now, I write while walking or driving somewhere. I write them all in my head.
Really?
Or like laying down before I go to bed. I'll just be like laying there listening to the silence, and something will come into my head, like a melody. I'll jump up, and my voice memos are like 240 deep of ideas. But and then every once in a while, when I'll be in a rehearsal room here, I'll be messing around with some ideas. But generally, stuff comes like just all internal. I just write it all in my head.
Interesting. And so you just use voice recorder. Do you ever use like Notepad or anything to like do lyrics ever pop up?
Well, I just put them all down in the voice recorder, and then I'll get like a basic idea of the melody and like the narrative angle, and then I'll sit down when I have the time. I'll make strategic time to sit down and play it out. But I also just try to find like 10 minutes here to work on a lyric, or and then they're usually not done at all until about 45 minutes before whatever show I've decided we're going to debut the song, and then I'll just like crap something out, and some of it sticks or some of it changes. So I'm definitely not afraid to play songs that aren't done and mumble through parts, because nobody can really hear that well live anyway.
That's how I'm feeling lately too, is just not being afraid to get a half-baked idea out there.
Yeah.
The balance of that it's a little scary, but it also feels to me the most fun. Like, it feels so raw, and I love that fresh feeling of just being vulnerable with your newest idea in front of people. It's addicting, actually.
And you can kind of figure out where, like, oh, that part's not working at all before you're completely tied to it. So you can be like, oh, you know, we need to figure out how to lead into this verse a little better.
Yeah, nothing like a show to really iron out what does and doesn't work.
Right.
Even more so than a rehearsal or sitting there, God forbid, trying to write a song in a coherent structure.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing that parenting, and maybe it's why I think parenting has made me realize how much I have to do it. I have to songwrite. I have to perform. I have to record. But it also like means it's also so inconsequential. It's so unimportant in the grand scheme of things. And I like that, the balance of like, well, I have to do it, but you know what? Nobody really gives that much of a shit. So just like do it. I feel like I'm just going to do it the best I can in the time that I have because I have to do it. But it's not that important in the world that I keep doing this. So it better be fun.
Exactly.
It better contribute to my health and not start taking away from my health. And it better be something like that I stand behind, you know? Like I'm proud that this is my artistic product.
Yeah, that's an interesting balance because we both have said now having a kid made you take it more seriously in a way. But then there's also the other side of that. When you take it too seriously, your time is already so constrained that you really have the potential to stress yourself out, and it becomes not that fun.
No. And not fun for anyone else either. Like, nobody likes the artist that takes themselves too seriously.
Yes, there is a balance when if we find it, we'll talk about it on another episode.
Who do you think is... No, we can't do this on this podcast. I'm trying to reference the artist that takes him or herself too seriously. I'm like trying to figure out someone who would throw a fit if their green room wasn't exact. Right, and then they go home and their toddler's room is an absolute disaster. Exactly. We'll talk about this after we pause the podcast. So one of the last things I want to get to, because our time's running short, but you know, I would say that time management is one of the biggest struggles for me personally. I'm kind of curious how you find time to meet all the needs of being a mom, your work, and then creativity. Like, is it something you can like rush and fit in, or does it need do you need to set aside a couple hours? Nothing fits. I don't know. I mean, for me, it's a constant battle. I wish I had, this is my penultimate struggle, there isn't enough time. And so something always is suffering. It's often my physical health. Like, I'm sick all the time. And not just like, oh, I have a cold. Like, I had strep for 2 weeks this month that wouldn't go away. I will get every barf flu that comes in. It's insane. And I think it's because, like, I just do it. I do all of the things until I fall down. So, you know, I have a kid that wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning. That's when his clock is set. So it's like 5 to 8:30, I'm parenting, hardcore parenting. I spend 45 minutes driving kids everywhere. I come to work. It's go time until 5:30. I'm home. It's nonstop until 9. And in the middle of all that, I'll try to find like 20 minutes here. Like, I'll take a break at work and go into one of the rehearsal studios, or days of shows, I'll fit in an hour from 5:30 to 7 before I go home. But it's not like... It's always in substitute for just downtime. So I think that's what's so incredibly challenging, is that like I need time for my mind to just do nothing and rest. And the 7 hours or whatever I'm able to like lay down at night are not enough. And so I just cram until my body quits. And then I'm like, I'm going to do better. I'm going to take better care of myself. But then the reality is that I just can't. So then I cram it in. So this is where I feel like, I don't know if anybody has the secret to this. This is, I guess, where I was thinking about people that do music for a living, I'm sure their answer is entirely different because their livelihood my livelihood depends on me coming to my 9 to 5 every day. But a career musician who depends on creativity to make a living, I would be really curious to see how they carve out that time.
Definitely.
How do you do it?
I have to find, it's the same way. I think it's time when most people would watch a movie at night or go for a walk or, spend time with their significant other, wife or husband. For better or worse, that's where I fill my time, is learning Logic, writing a new song, writing podcast episode notes. We're working on a music festival for May next year. So there is little downtime, and that's really where the struggle of mental health comes in, because you've got to find something. And for me, I've found that setting aside even the most minimal time before I go into my job to have, 3 minutes of meditation in my car, or just do nothing, or go for like a 5-minute walk where I'm just not going to think about any of this stuff. Mm-hmm. That really makes all the difference. That's the best I can do right now. Mm-hmm. It's very imperfect, but...
Yeah, it's great. It's intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some intention of doing something for yourself.
Right. Well, Erin, it's been so nice talking to you. I already feel like worlds have opened up.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. I feel good too. Parent friends.
High We're high-fiving. Where can people check you out with Porlolo and your other work?
We have a website, porlolo.com. Bandcamp is where we have our most recent music, although it's on all of the typical places, the Spotify, the iTunes, all of that. And we try to keep our shows up to date on there. We have a tour coming up. I don't know when this podcast will come out, so I don't want to too specifically date what's coming up, but there's always another show until there's not.
Great. Well, thanks again, Erin.
Thank you.
The Procreative podcast was produced by me, Jay Mars, at Moon Magnet Studios in Denver, Colorado. It was mastered by Reed Fox, and our music was provided by Kevin Netz. You can find more at moonmagnetmusic.com.